Hey guys, today we'll just be continuing with our C video tutorial. So we'll start I'm using C-line today. So we'll just start with including some of the include statements. So we'll just say hashtag include, and then left angular bracket stdio.h. Then we'll include conio.h. So here we'll just start our main function. So we'll just call void, then main open parentheses. So remember, void just means return nothing. So void just means don't return anything. Instead here we usually write int, so that would return a number, or you can type char. You could type char, that would return a string. So we'll just leave it with void, and then we'll say we'll initialize in a two-dimensional array. So we'll say int arr of 3, array index 3, and then array index 4, semicolon. So here we're initializing a two-dimensional array. Spell that right. So here we're initializing a 2D array of 3 rows and 4 columns. We'll say int I, so we'll declare some more variables, int I, j, and k. And we'll say printf, so we'll print some standard output. So we'll say enter array element. And we'll say for I equals to 0, I is less than 3, I++, so we're looping through, we're iterating through 0 to 3, incrementing by 1. And we're going to nest the loop, so we're going to open the square bracket here, and then we're going to say for j is equal to 0, j is less than 4, j++, so it's the same thing, we're just incrementing with a different variable. So this is the outer loop, and then this is the inner loop. Then we'll call the function for standard input, so scanf. We'll say %d for, we're going to pass in an integer, which is like a whole number. And we'll call ampersand, so the memory location of arr of index I, array index I, and then array index j, semicolon. Then we'll nest another loop here. So after scanf, %d, memory location at array index I, array index j. Then we'll close the for loop. Then we'll open another one underneath. So then we'll say for I is equal to 0, I is less than 3, I++. And then the same thing, so we'll just say for j is equal to 0, j is less than 4, j++. So here we're getting standard input for our array elements, and then here we're going to print them to standard output. So we'll say printf, and then in the string %d, out of the quotations, comma, and then array of index I, and then index j, semicolon. And then at the bottom, we'll call the function getCH. So what does getCH do? GetCH, it is a function, is a non-standard function in the header file conio.h header file. So it reads a single character from the keyboard, but it does not use any buffer. So the entered character is returned immediately without waiting for the enter key. So the parameters are, so there's no parameters. The return value is the ASCII value of the key pressed. So we'll just demonstrate that in the debugger in 1 sec. So just save that. So we'll just run it just to check that it compiled properly. So it says enter array element. So we'll just say 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it printed out for us. So we'll set a breakpoint to show what's happening. So we'll set a breakpoint here on line 6, and then we'll just set one here and here just in case that breakpoint sometimes does not execute if it's just a declaration. So we'll set a breakpoint here, and then I'll just click the debugger icon on the top right. Just save that. Okay, so it's the program starting at the line 8, so it's at the printf statement, enter array element. So we'll step over it, and you can see in the output it says enter array element. Now we're at for I is equal to 0, I is less than 3, I plus plus. So we can check our local variables here, and we can see that I is equal to 0. So on the initial entering of the loop, I initially points to 0. So we'll step in. So I is equal to 0, I is less than 3, I plus plus. So the loop's going to run until I is equal to 2, because 2 is less than 3. So once I adds 1 to 2, so it'll become 3. 2 plus 1, 3. So I is equal to 3, I is less than 3. That would be false. So this loop condition would skip. So initially I is equal to 0, so we'll just step in. So we can see here on our local variable that I is equal to 0. And then now we're at for j is equal to 0, so it's nested. So in that case, then this loop is going to execute first completely before this I will increment again. So j has to increment till 4 before I can increment to 1. So for j is equal to 0, j is less than 4, j plus plus. We'll step in, so initially j is equal to 0, and then it's executing scanf %d and % at memory location array of index I of index j. So it's asking for so it's asking for an integer for that memory location to set to that memory location of I is equal to 0 and j is equal to 0. So it's asking for the 0, the row 0 and the column 0 element. So if we step over that, it's going to wait for input. So here we can just put like 100, hit enter. So now you can see that j was 0. When we step into the loop again, because the loop exited, then it went back to the top. So if we step in again, j is going to increment by 1, so it's going to add 1. So 0 plus 1 is 1. So we'll step in. See, now j is equal to 1, so j is now 1, so j is equal to 1. J is less than 4j plus plus. So it's asking for input again. See, before it was I is 0, right? I is still 0, so before I was 0, now I is still 0. Now j was 0 before, now j has added 1 now, so it's 1. So 0 and 1. Before it was 0 and 0, now it's 0 and 1. So it's asking for the memory location at 0 and 1. So we want to hold a variable at that memory location. So we'll step over, and then we'll input something for array index 0, 1. We'll say like 200, hit enter. So j was 1, now we'll step in again. The loop was exited, we're at the condition. Stepping in again, we'll increment j by 1, so before j was 1, now j plus 1 is 2. So j equals to 2, j is less than 4, j plus plus. So now we're at array index I, which is 0, j, which is 2. So then we'll get more standard input for this memory location. So now we're asking for the memory location at, so remember the ampersand is asking for the memory location at array index 0, 2. So we'll just say 300, hit enter. So this could take a while. So we'll just keep going. So now j is 2. So now if we increment j by 1, it'll be j equals to 3. So now I is equal to 0 and j is equal to 3. So then we're asking for in standard input again. So we'll step over, and we're executing scanf %d, comma ampersand array if index ij. So we'll enter 400 here. So for j is equal to 3, so j is equal to 2 now plus 1, j is equal to 3. For array index 0, 3, we enter 400. So now if we execute this line again, j will become 4 because we're adding 1 to 3, which j will become 4. So j is equal to 4. J is less than 4. J plus plus. So is that true or false? Is 4 less than 4? No, that's false. So this whole loop will get skipped. We'll go back to the top to the outer loop. So now for I is equal to, actually I think I stepped over that by accident. Oh, I think I forgot the bracket. Sorry, we'll just enter the bracket and come back. Might have one extra bracket, so let's delete that. Okay, I'll just save it and then we'll execute again. So I'll just enter some values quickly. So we'll just skip to where we were. So we had 100. Then we stepped in again. Then we entered 200. All setting to the memory locations. then 300, and then 400, and then we went back to the outer loop. Okay, now we're back at the outer loop. So I was equal to 0. So I is equal to 0, I is less than 3, I plus plus. So we iterated through the whole inner loop iteration once. So now I would become 1 because 0, so it's I plus plus, so I is equal to 0, I plus 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 means 1. So I is equal to 1 now. So I is equal to 1, I is less than 3, I plus plus, so it'll step in. This whole process will happen again, right? The exact process we just did. We entered 4 numbers to input to the memory locations, which I was equal to 0, but the only difference now is I is not 0, I is 1, because we incremented I by 1. So now it's setting 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3. Before it was setting 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. So setting 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. Now we're setting 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3. The memory locations corresponding to 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3. So the same thing, we'll just, instead of repeating the process, since you know, we'll just enter some values. So j is equal to 0, then I'll step in incremented by 1, so j is equal to 1. Might have been a null value by accident there, so we'll just continue. So now j is equal to 3, so j was equal 1, 2, and now it's 3. So last iteration, we'll just enter a value. Any value is fine. So now the loop condition's false, so it's going to go back to the top. So I is equal to 1, I was 0, then it's 1, now it's 1. So then, sorry, it was 0, then it was 1, now it's 2. So I is equal to 0, I is less than 3, I plus plus. So it was 1. Now, so I is equal to 2, I is less than 3, I plus plus. So step in and you can see that I is now 1 in the local variables. Sorry, I is equal to 2 from 1. Then the same process repeats. So we'll just enter values again. J is 1, now J is 2. So J was 0, then it's 1. Now it's 2, so I enter value for 2 for I. So array index 2, comma 2. So now J is 3, so now we're entering a value for the memory location at array index 2, comma 3. That was the last condition, so now I was equal to 2, I is less than 3, I plus plus, that would increment by 1 now, so I is equal to 3, I is less than 3. So that would be false, so this whole loop would get skipped, so it would continue down to the next loop here. Now this loop is doing the exact same thing we just did, instead it's just going to print it out. So instead here we're getting a standard input. we're getting input from the keyboard or whatever from the mobile device. So now we're just going to print it out to the screen, so it could be like a monitor or a phone or whatever. So we're just going to continue it. So I is equal to 0, I is less than 3, I plus plus. We'll just skip that. You guys know what's happening, so now we're just printing out the statement. So here you can see it's at index 0, 0, array of index 0, comma 0. So if you go to the output, what's going to happen is you're just going to see the value at that index. So we'll step over, and it should print that. So you printed 100 because at array of index I of index j, which is 0, array of index 0 of index 0, that value at 0, 0 is 100. So that's why I printed 100. So it's just going to continue printing the values. Okay, so it's waiting for that getCH function. I believe so. J is equal to 0. J is less than. J was 0. J is less than 4. J plus plus. We came down to the print statement. We printed. Then it looped back to the top. So it should be printing the values and then waiting for input. Just check if I have those brackets correct. So for I is equal to 0, I is less than 3i plus plus, and we open square brackets. And for j is equal to 0, j is less than 4, j plus plus. We open square brackets and we printed the memory location at array of index I, comma j. Okay, I think there should have been two brackets there. So I think now there's 2 brackets there as well. So let's just continue with this to see what the output is. So we should have all the values printed out. That's correct, and then it should be waiting for input at the end. Okay, so it's going to continue printing out the values because this at the end of the loop it's going to call the getCH function. So that's just waiting for like an enter key or something, or actually for an ASCII character. So that I think there's supposed to be a bracket here, and that's supposed to be at the end, but you guys get the idea. So hopefully you guys understand two-dimensional arrays. They're not too difficult. They can get a little tricky if you're new to them. They're not too hard though once you practice. We're going to be looking at more of them, so don't worry. So I'll just double check this code. So we have for I is equal to 0, I is less than 3, I plus plus, so that should be fine. Then we nested it with j. Then we printed out the output, so you guys get the basic idea. So hopefully that helps. You guys can subscribe for more videos if you want to learn more coding videos. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care.